Okay, today is the Windows Office and AI SIG meeting of the Chicago Computer Society for July 2026. I hope most of you are having better weather than what we had recently, but it sounds like tomorrow might be a absolutely beautiful day in the Chicagoland area. Talking low 70s and low dew points below 60.
Oh, I'm going to travel up there.
What did you say, Drew?
We have a lot of we've had for the last few weeks really humid, high dew point days.
Yeah, last week, Nat, we had that very heavily. So we're just getting now to the point where, hey, maybe when I wake up in the morning, it's going to be a nice day.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I take my dog out for a walk. I have to wear a headband to keep the sweat out of my eyes.
I couldn't get that lucky because offhand, a sweatband that would be so saturated, I'd have to take it off every several minutes just to squeeze out all the water. I'm a
Yeah, I can't. Well, I bring two of them with me.
I'm a very heavy sweater. I can sweat for two or three people.
And then I have a moisture wicking skull cap that I use sometimes. Um, you wring it out and you put it under the sink faucet, and then you wring it out, and then when you're outside and you're walking, it actually cools your head.
Hmm, I can do that. All right. Well, at the moment, I'm gonna open the floor to open forum. Anybody got any problems, questions, comments, things that somebody would like to know about that you know about? Any
Uh,
anybody got anything?
well, I already blew it with, I was mentioning the new Brave. Uh, I don't know how long ago it came out. I just found out about it last week.
It's been very close to a month that I've known about the Brave part.
Maybe we should review what exactly is going on there because that was not recorded.
Yes. This was a topic Drew brought up about would anybody pay money for a browser? And this happens to be about the Brave browser on Windows. There are still people who do not like the AI into it. They're not into crypto, and they don't want any of the ads, etc. If they can help it. So the creators of Brave created a Brave Origins version. You pay one time $60 to have it and use it on your system in place of the regular Brave. If you're a Linux user, you can choose either one of those and it costs you nothing. Now, exactly why they're doing that in Linux versus Windows, I'm not 100% sure, but I have a suspicion that there's to get the Brave on Windows platform and into the Microsoft Store probably cost them some money. So they're trying to recoup some money for the plain Jane version of Brave Origin.
Does Brave Origin run strictly as a Windows Store app, or does it have an installable version?
I
A
I
full
think that
version?
you can. I think you can download it directly from
Yeah, you
the
can.
Brave website.
Yes.
Okay.
But the only way you can download it is you have to pay the fee.
Right.
Yeah, but that kind of kills the idea that it's because it's a web store app, a
Yeah,
Microsoft Store app.
but you can also, if you have Brave loaded and you have the current version, if you go into settings and in system, you can actually buy the Brave upgrade right from inside the browser.
And
Oh, lovely.
it takes out the other stuff that you don't want. giving you the origin.
Yep, just what we need, in-app purchases. Go to
Well,
Firefox, you don't have to pay.
well, if you have Brave running on Linux, you go into that same spot and there's a button that just says activate origin and you click it and it strips out all the shit.
Correct. I do it in Firefox no matter where you are. You can get rid of their AI anyway.
Yeah,
And if you know the flags, you can get rid of a lot more AI and a lot more advertising.
right. But that's true in some of the other Chromium-based ones as well. They don't have what Firefox has as a base switch to turn off some of the main AI.
Yeah.
And that's something that really should be on all systems, no matter what, to opt in or to opt out of a particular feature. And unfortunately, that'll probably never happen.
At least not this side of the Atlantic. The
Well,
EU is different.
well, there's some people, and this brings up a segue. It's a fact that there were one or two people I have seen create YouTube videos and or articles where when they were doing an install of even Windows, they made their location part of the EU. When they were done installing, they changed it back to what it should have been. And they don't have a lot of that stuff that are banned in Europe from Microsoft. But it also probably would work with Google as well. The only thing
Yeah.
you might need to do, and that's not a certainty, is possibly you might need to use a VPN. Otherwise, they might detect you're given a false location and not honor the EU legislation that blocks things.
Right.
Plus, the EU increasingly is passing age verification, so that you would have to have EU style age verification, depending on which EU country you did it from.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my VPN provider has already come up with a workaround for the people in Europe that want to run a VPN, but the government can detect that you're running a VPN.
Yes.
And they came out with a feature called a dedicated IP. And I signed up for it. So I now have in Miami my own IP address, and I get the same IP address every day. And it's not out of the pool of IP addresses that are in the VPN. And every place I go to that bitches about my running a VPN, they don't do it anymore.
Well, there's also the age verification and attestation that right now, especially the UK, which has very strong laws right now, they're finding out how bad of a joke their laws are because nobody's really paying attention to it by and large. And part of that is they're using Tor browser and or VPN with the Tor browser. And that's how they're escaping, so to speak, the age verification.
Right.
How long that'll last, who knows? But at the same time, too, it takes all those creating the legislation and voting for that legislation and puts egg on their faces. All right. Anybody got anything else?
Well, for anybody that's worried about internet outages in their home, not my internet's very reliable. It only goes out during hurricanes. Um, and my new router that I got has the option to plug in. I can plug my cell phone into it, and you go into the management menu, and you can switch on the option to go through your phone, and it doesn't use a hotspot. It goes right into the data port on your phone, and it feeds your whole house.
Huh.
So everything that you have, your TV, your computer, they still connect to the same router, but they're going out to your phone rather than through the cable that's out.
Yeah, but you got to have a big data plan, or otherwise you burn through that data limit, nothing flat. And
Oh,
not everybody has that kind of phone option in theirs. And third, you have a situation where what happens when you receive a phone call?
nothing. I have to have the phone plugged into the router. So I just when I don't have to do it every day because it's only for outages.
Right.
And if I have the phone plugged into the router, the one day that I did it, I just used a Bluetooth earpiece for my phone.
Okay,
I
that might be a
now,
workaround.
what was that, Tim?
I said that might be a real workaround, having a Bluetooth earpiece.
Yeah. I now what Comcast Xfinity offers in my area is cellular backup, which functions as a hotspot on their own cell plan network, but you don't have to buy their cell plan to get it. It's just an add-on to your service,
Now,
and that will switch
what's
you
the
over.
what's the monthly fee for it?
I don't recall what the add-on is, but it looked as though it wasn't terribly expensive. I I could find out. And they call it a cell backup feature.
Uh, yeah,
$15 a month for an add-on plan.
not terrible.
Or there are hardware payments of $7 a month for 36 months. That's for the hardware that does this.
Oh,
Xfinity Pro or Storm Ready Wi-Fi is what you need.
be cheaper to buy your own router that has it built in.
Yeah, but anyway, it's 4G LTE.
Yeah,
Uh,
mine's got 5G ultra wideband. Um, I get like 400 megabytes per second download on my phone.
yeah.
And I have the unlimited data plan.
Well, it's those third-party unlimited data plans that'll kill you. I have a third-tier carrier, US Mobile, where it's a little less of a pain. The Storm Ready hardware is $250 up front, and battery backup is $60 for 4 hours of reserve power during a total blackout. And there's an Xfinity Voice battery case, which is also $65 for a landline modem specific backup case, which I have, by the way.
Now,
And you need to have a certain gateway, XB7 or higher, and I have the 7.
now, what you can do also is plug your phone into your computer and turn your Windows computer into a hotspot and then connect everything up to that. But that requires that you go around your house and tell every device in your house to switch to a different Wi-Fi.
And you need to have enough power to power the devices, including the computer. Mm.
Okay, anybody got anything else?
Um, not really. Uh, yeah,
All right, then I'll start my part of the meeting. All right, now I'm going to preface this one. This is one of two new articles I just got around lunchtime. And when I first saw this one and I was playing it, and I'll only do the first few minutes, it's in your handout. I thought, this sounds like maybe junk. So I took the URL, I opened up an AI. Mine happened to be set for Gemini, and I put in there review of the following for accuracy and trustworthiness, and then gave it the URL of this video. And I was amazed how it came back saying everything looks absolutely accurate. So I'm going to play just a little bit of this, and then I will go on to the next one. Oh,
Share sound.
hang on one second. Yeah, I know, I forgot that. Just realized it, and then I get somebody else coming in. Let's see.
Pause updates for far too long, and also some people will say remind me tomorrow before they actually install. This person right here says he's still on Windows 11 23H2 and wondering if it's worth updating to 26H1 or H2. And that is the big problem I see with a lot of people. They literally pause updates for far too long. 23H2 has already reached end of life, and that means his system is vulnerable. And you may be thinking I'm exaggerating when I say his system is vulnerable, because so many people believe that your system is not vulnerable and you just need to install an antivirus program and you'll be perfectly fine. To leave updates paused for years, if not many months. So let's talk about Microsoft's Patch Tuesday that fixed a record-breaking 570 vulnerabilities. And you can see right here in the update section, there'll be people that will turn off notifications and pause updates for far too long. This means your system is not going to receive the fixes and patches that Microsoft have released, which is going to patch 570 vulnerabilities in a single month, including active zero-day exploits. And a couple of things you're going to see all the time with Windows is remote code execution. These are RCEs, hackers taking control of your computer. There's also elevation of privilege, EOP, hackers gaining administrator rights to your computer. And this is the real risk of when you don't literally update your operating system on a regular basis. Now, Windows 11 and Windows 10 has versions. These are the versions you can see right here. This is on the Windows Insider program. It's 26H2. But I've seen people using really old versions of Windows that are now end of life, and they're still running them today, just like that guy in that comment. And he's just one of many comments I've seen where people are pausing updates for like years at a time, which is crazy. The number one reason why updates exist is security. Think of your operating system like a massive digital house with thousands of doors and windows. When code is written, small mistakes called vulnerabilities get left behind. Hackers spend days, if not months, trying to find these unlocked doors to gain access to their operating system. And that is why it's so important to make sure you are using a version of Windows that is still receiving updates and security updates. If you are not using one of these versions, you are leaving yourself vulnerable. It's not just your computer that is vulnerable for hackers to gain access. It's also your network, because once they're in, they'll gain access to your network. And you can see on this site, it gives you versions of Windows which are already obsolete. They're out of date and they've reached end of life. And 23H2 is one of those, and I see so many people still on 23H2. So what is the recent Microsoft patch Tuesday that fixed a record-breaking 570 flaws in their operating system? Microsoft July 2026 patch Tuesday had a record-breaking security updates. And you can see here 2 0-day vulnerabilities exploited in attacks, security feature bypasses, denial of service, information disclosure, there was 102 of those, remote code execution, there was 145 of those, and elevation of privilege, 254 of those. That's 59 critical bugs that need to be patched. And you can see right here, they're all listed out so you can see them nice and clearly. It's quite worrying to think that people could quite easily gain access to your Windows computer without security updates. And that's why it's so important that people need to update security updates on a regular basis. Now, it's okay to pause updates for 30 days, but if you start getting onto 4, 5, 6, 8 months and even longer, you are now going to leave yourself vulnerable. And you may be thinking that I've got an antivirus program and that's going to keep me safe. But remember, antivirus software does not block or fix underlying Windows operating system vulnerabilities, no matter what the operating system is. Antivirus programs are a security program that are looking for known malware. They do not patch actual software flaws in your operating system, period. So only Microsoft security updates can fix vulnerabilities in the operating system. Your firewall and your antivirus is not going to block those and protect you. So vulnerabilities are security flaws and holes in the code in the operating system. And your antivirus program, just like Malwarebytes, is designed to stop malware. And that's pretty much it. It's looking for malware. It's not looking for exploited holes in the operating system or flaws in the code of the operating system. So bear that in mind, especially if you're using old operating systems like Windows 7. It's just going to be completely flawed because none of those patches have been pushed down to Windows 7 for many years, and that means those holes and flaws and vulnerabilities are just sitting there waiting for a hacker to come on in, and they will. Now, like I said earlier, there's a variety of different vulnerabilities that Microsoft patch on a regular basis. This is just one of them right here, and you'll see the severity of it and how they use these vulnerabilities to gain access to your system. And it will say here, use after a free Windows storage allows the authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally. That means they're giving themselves administrator privileges on your system, and that's scary. And that's the big problem when you don't patch the operating system. All of these vulnerabilities will just be sitting there. It's like leaving all your house and door windows open all the time and going out and going on holiday for 2 weeks and hoping no one goes inside your house, because that's exactly what is happening with your operating system. And I don't care how clued up you are in IT, it is not going to protect you. So you need to have a good look at some of the updates. Now, some people are way behind. They are months and months and months behind. This is just 1 month of 570 vulnerabilities. And you can click and check these for yourself. You just have to do a little click on the article right here, and it will tell you the sort of vulnerabilities that Microsoft are patching. And don't let the Linux fanboys con you in the comments section saying, I'm sitting here in the cheap seats on my Linux operating system. I don't have to worry about this stuff. Oh, yes, you do, because Linux is full of holes as well. It's not perfect. and every operating system will have flaws and vulnerabilities and holes that need to be patched on a regular basis. And Linux is no different. And of course, you're going to get the people in the comments section saying I'm fear-mongering people and I'm trying to frighten people and misleading people. And it's not. It's just I'm stating the facts. And if you don't do it, that's on you. That's your computer. You run your computer how you like. I'm just giving you tech information that is important that you should be following. And if you're not following it, then you're going to be vulnerable. Just have a look at this list right here on Bleepy Computer. Now, you can stop this anytime you like and click on any of these CVEs and they will give you full-blown information. All the .NET frameworks you can see there, there's vulnerabilities there, Active Directory, certificate services, and there's tons and tons. You can click on these right here. They will open up a page and you can read the type of vulnerability it is. And this one's for the .NET Framework Denial of Service vulnerability, and it will give you the date and it will also give you other information right here. And you can go ahead and read some more. And there's some critical ones here as well for Active Directory. There's quite a few there for Active Directory. And the list just goes on and on and on. There's tons and tons of vulnerabilities. Now, I know what some people are going to say in the comments section is, oh my God, Windows is like a sieve. But Microsoft are a £1 trillion company and they are literally chucking loads and loads of money at security. Whereas you might say Linux doesn't, and that's probably why. And there will be vulnerabilities in Linux as well. It's just that a lot of people don't cover that sort of stuff on channels. But I cover everything on this channel to bring you information that is important to keep you safe online. And you can see right here, heap-based buffer overflow in desktop Windows Manager allows authorized attacker to elevate privileges locally. That means they're giving themselves administrative privileges on your computer using a vulnerability that has now been patched. And you can go through the list here. There's ones here for Copilot as well. And this is a critical one. Click on this and it will take you to the page and you can read exactly how people are using Microsoft Copilot remote code execution vulnerability. And I mentioned this yesterday, Linux is no different. And in yesterday's video, I put a video up about Linux also starting to embrace AI. And Linus Torvalds said, if you don't like the AI is being used to develop and maintain Linux, Torvalds says tough. AI is part and parcel of developing Linux now, and that is not changing anytime soon. And no one wants to be left behind. So they are now starting to embrace AI. Windows is already doing it. Linux is now starting to do it. They're starting to use it to maintain and also develop Linux. Yes, you can build a fork off the main operating system like Ubuntu and build something else like Zorin OS. But at the end of the day, Linux is starting to embrace AI. And of course, with AI being used, they know that they can find bugs and they can find write code and they can do a lot of things much more efficiently and quicker. And this is why a lot of operating systems are starting to use AI. And that means it can be abused as well. And you've got one right here as well with a workaround in Microsoft Defender allows unauthorized attacker to execute code locally. And it's the same with, AI. They will use AI as a tool to be able to exploit an operating system. They will use it for good and for bad. There's lots of bad people out there. And probably as time goes on, AI will be used more and more. And you're probably going to see AI being exploited more and more because people are using it more and more and learning how to use it. Microsoft Office is another one that was massively updated. There was literally tons of Microsoft Office that had to be patched. Microsoft Office remote code execution vulnerability right here, one of many. This is a critical update that needs to be done on your system. And of course, if you pause in updates and you don't update Windows, then of course, and you do have Office on there, I've seen people using old versions of Office that aren't even supported anymore or not even receiving updates anymore, and yet they still use them, which will make your whole operating system vulnerable. So this video is about why you shouldn't ignore Windows updates and you shouldn't be putting them off. The same thing can be said for Linux as well. If you are using an old version of Linux that's outdated, and it doesn't receive any support anymore, you should be using a supported version of that operating system or any operating system and keep it updated on a regular basis. If you leave it too long, you're going to get way outdated. And of course, another problem you're going to face if you don't update, say for instance, Windows that often, and you're using an old obsolete version that has already reached end of life, when you go to roll out updates to the latest version, you can run into big problems and you may need to do a fresh install because it might not work, and you might have problems updating. Anyway, with that said, I'll leave all this information in the video description for you so you can take a look at this at your own leisure. So how long should you go without updating Windows? Well, I suppose that's up for debate. A lot of people are going to argue the pros and cons about that. It's just like not using a seatbelt in your car. How long will you go before you end up having an accident if you don't have a seatbelt on? You're running the gauntlet, really. You're playing Russian roulette with your life. And yes, it might not be as serious having no updates on your PC, but it's still a serious vulnerability to your computer and to your local network. Anyway, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Just want to say a quick shout out for all my YouTube members who have joined my YouTube members group. I really do appreciate the support, and I shall catch you in the...
Okay. Now, one thing about, he mentioned Active Directories. This only applies to people who have to work in the office. The businesses will have a Active Directory on the server to say who gets in and what privileges they have. If you are a remote worker from home, it also applies because you are attaching your computer to their business system, and it'll go through Active Directory. Outside of that, Active Directory can be ignored by the majority of the public. Now, as far as Office, the one thing that I want to add that isn't in this one, all software is made so far by people. I have no idea if there is such a thing as a perfect person that never makes a conscious or unconscious error in judgment. And so as the end result, all software is susceptible, and you have bug fixes and security vulnerability patches that need to be applied to any and all, not just Office, but you also need to have it on all your other applications as well. The one caveat out of that particular scenario is MS365. It is limited as to what they put on your system. The majority of the code that is being executed is on the Azure Microsoft servers that are updated by them probably, if not just daily, possibly multiple times per day. And you may not know what patches are going in. But aside from that, most, and Adobe products might be another one in that category. Some CAD software, especially the main type software, where you are a subscriber to a service and you are running the software on their computers, they keep that pretty much up to date. All software you install in your system is vulnerable, and you got to keep it as up to date as possible to keep as many holes blocked to hackers looking to find a way into your system. They can do it also with regular applications. They, however, run into a problem if you are running as a standard user. They have to prompt some kind of a message to make you panic and say okay to it and possibly give your administrator password, and then they have administrator privileges and can do whatever they want on your system. So you have to be very, very cautious. There are a lot of people, when their initial system is set up, the first account they make, whether they understand it or not, is an administrator's account. It's only for maintaining that computer system, but they are running day to day on an administrator account. That means any malware, any hacker that manages to get into their system is automatically an administrator that can do anything they want. You got to use your head. And as soon as I saw this one, I had to include it today. Anybody else got any comments on this particular video?
Well, Tim, I do have a couple. He's correct about almost everything he says. It's spot on. I would have no reason to ask AI whether this is factual, because it is. And it's been known for a long time.
Right.
This does not mean that you do need to keep things patched and that you cannot delay forever without serious risk.
Right.
However, strategically pausing for a couple of weeks, as he says, less than 30 days, may save you from a few headaches, like the ones that happened with the mega patch that just happened. People got into some pretty bad headaches on some systems. And there are newsletters like Ask Woody, which will advise you when the coast is clear, and you don't have to pay money to find that out.
There is, in regards to some of the headaches with that last patch for July, it is known that some Dell systems do have a problem. They were automatically locked out of applying the patch again if they bring that system back up and running again. So the end result is until Dell creates a patch for those vulnerable systems, you can't get the patches to plug up vulnerabilities. But at the same time, too, there haven't been as many other machines being really reported periodically. But if somebody were to try and update July, update, and has had their system not take updates for, say, all of 26 so far, they could end up with a myriad of headaches, and they don't know exactly what month that was causing a problem for their specific machine. So it's a case where you really do need to say, okay, if I pause this for 30 days, that's okay, as long as I then load those patches in, then proceed for the new month. I might pause that again for 30 days. This gives you the ability that some of the problems that occur in Patch Tuesday may get fixed by the time you, at the end of 30 days, do the update. You do it the day before the next month's Patch Tuesday. And it's always the second Tuesday of the month at about noon. My recommendation would be the day before, Monday. You would run the updates for the past month, get them all in, put the pause back on for 30 days, and in the Monday before the next Patch Tuesday, you update those updates and then pause it again for 30 days. That is a viable strategy. Even just pausing an update, say for 2 weeks from the Patch Tuesday, we'll get some of the most serious problems probably patched by the time you say resume updating. And you may not have any real issues, or at least less issues than some of those that have occurred so far in the 24H2 and the 25H2 development cycle.
Yeah, and at the worst case scenario is after 2 weeks, at least you'll know most of the things that could go wrong.
Right.
So
As
if
long
it
as
does
you,
go wrong, you'll know what the workarounds are.
well, that's also assuming that each individual is keeping up to date on what's going on and would know about known problems and whether it might affect them or it may not, such as knowing that Dell has some models of computers that do have a problem with July's update. Those are now being locked out. When the patch occurs from Dell to apply to their system, then they'll supposedly be able to update July's update and patch all the other vulnerabilities that are in just the operating system and or Office.
And this is why you should have reliable sources that you go to once in a while about tech issues and tech announcements, specifically regarding patching, whether you're using Windows or especially if you're using Linux and even Mac OS.
Oh,
There are
yes.
plenty of reliable resources that you can look at, and you can just pick a couple or three, get a news feed, an RSS if you still do that, and maybe a YouTube channel.
Yep. It's one of these things where some people don't listen to the news, so they don't know what's going on around them. And then when they get into serious trouble, if it doesn't kill them, they regret what the heck happened. But it was mostly because they didn't listen to the warnings that were already out being broadcast on radio and television, as an example. If you don't listen, hey, what? We can't stop everybody from being foolish and doing something, including driving their car into potentially deep water when there's flash flooding occurring. Look at all the people that keep trying to do it, thinking like they have a four-wheel boat that's going to just float right across the water to the other side, and they continue on wherever the heck they're going.
But a Cybertruck is supposed to be able to float.
Yeah, right. Anyway, I now the other one of the articles, I'm going to bring that up next. This is the one that I did use heavily on AI, and it's at least worth listening to, but I won't play much of it. It's only about 13 minutes long, but at the same time too, we got a little bit of a late start because of people showing up late.
The most valuable software company in the world just made the biggest bet in tech, and Wall Street punished them for it anyway. On June 2nd, 2026, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella walked on stage in San Francisco and, in one keynote, announced an always-on AI agent that works while you sleep, a quantum chip the company says is 1,000 times more reliable than its last one. 7 new AI models built entirely in-house, and a version of Windows that no longer really looks like Windows. That is not a normal product keynote. It reads more like a declaration of war, and the rest of the industry noticed. To understand what Microsoft just did, you have to understand what they have been doing quietly for 3 years. While the headlines went to ChatGPT and Elon Musk and the benchmark fights, Microsoft was spending a lot. The company has committed roughly $190 billion in capital expenditures for 2026 alone, more than the annual output of some countries, pouring concrete into data centers, buying chips in bulk, and wiring up the infrastructure for a world that runs on AI. That number is big enough to make investors nervous. Microsoft stock fell nearly 24% in the first half of 2026, its worst start to a year since the dot-com crash in 2000. The market was telling Microsoft it was spending too fast and getting too far ahead of real demand. Nadella heard all of it. Then he took the Build 2026 stage and announced more anyway. The most disruptive thing they announced has a simple name: Scout. It isn't a chatbot, and it isn't Copilot with a fresh coat of paint. Microsoft calls it an autopilot agent, an always-on AI that lives inside your Microsoft 365 setup and doesn't wait for you to ask it anything. It reads your Teams messages, your Outlook threads, and your SharePoint files. It catches calendar conflicts before you spot them. It drafts the status report before you remember it's due. It flags the email chain that's about to slip through the cracks while it's still slipping, not after. Scout runs with its own digital identity inside your organization. It has its own account, its own permissions, and its own audit trail. It is not a feature you switch on. In Microsoft's own words, it is a virtual coworker. It is built on OpenClaw, the open source agent framework that spread across the AI world in early 2026 before its creator got hired away by OpenAI. And Scout wraps that framework in the kind of governance enterprises actually require. When one OpenClaw agent reportedly went rogue inside a researcher's inbox earlier this year, the industry got a preview of what an unsupervised AI agent could do. Scout is Microsoft's answer: autonomous AI with an accountability structure bolted on. Microsoft expects Scout to help manage what it projects will be 1.3 billion AI agents automating office work by 2028.
Okay, I'm pausing it there. Anybody got any comments on this one? These will all be on the handout with a heck of a lot more articles on top of it.
Well, Tim, the language is entirely directed toward business. So this is not a consumer operating system. This is not Windows 12.
Well, that remains to be seen.
No, it's not Windows 12. It absolutely is not.
Well, there's those that may agree, and there may be those that disagree.
Oh, yeah, there are always people who want to stir the pot, but they're a bunch of liars.
Well, this went through Gemini, and it came back as being right on the money for what was said at Build.
Wait a minute, Tim. What the AI detected was that this announcement was made. True. They did not, I don't know if you asked them, whether this was going to affect consumer versions or whether it was just for business. If you asked it that, it would have made a distinction if it's any good at AI.
There are enterprise versions, I grant you. There's also education versions, I grant you. There's also Pro, which is heavily used by business regular users, both remote and local. But there's also the Home, which does not have the GP edit capability for policies, that you can change the policies if you have the rights to do so. In enterprise, you would not have that right. That's what Active Directory would block.
Yeah, Active Directory sort of takes the place of group policy in some ways.
Well,
but Home and Pro are generally not affected by something Microsoft keeps pounding on, this word business, office work. That's the key hint, that this is not aimed at consumers. It's not aimed at the Pro Edition.
From what I'm seeing and hearing in other sources, that they do put some of this, not all of it, Not to this extent, I'll grant you, but they do put some level of this even in the home and pro versions for the consumer.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that Scout in a limited context might appear if you have hardware that's capable of running a local AI.
Right.
But if you don't have an NPU, none of this matters to you. It's irrelevant.
That I agree 100% with. And I don't have any advanced processors that have an NPU. At best, I have a GPU, and a GPU can be used to run some AI, depending on what level or version is practical. The more recent versions of GPUs, discrete GPUs, like gamers use, can be
Yeah.
used for AI purposes. Older stuff will not likely have that capability.
What is happening is NVIDIA, and they haven't said whether this is going to be for personal use or business use or both, NVIDIA and Microsoft are developing a very capable AI computer,
Yes,
which is based on an all NVIDIA chipset.
that's correct.
And that chipset is really heavy on AI. And as a result, this Scout would be dovetailing with that, and it would be aimed mostly at businesses, small businesses, etc., not at common consumers, most of whom are really not interested in this level of agentic AI.
Like I said, I think some of it is going to creep into home and pro, not to this level.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that some of it won't. Agentic AI is a thing with Microsoft.
Right.
It is a thing with Google. It is a thing, it's going to be a thing with Apple, whether you like it or not. And in Linux, it may become available, but it'll be opt in.
Well, hopefully. I have seen one occurrence so far of an obscure new version of Linux that seems to come with AI as part of the Linux operating system. There were two other features that could be opted out of at installation, but not the AI portion.
Red Hat Fedora has been talking about developing what appears to be turning into a fork, which will, in fact, be very AI centric.
Yeah.
And Canonical with Ubuntu may be going that direction as well, but there will be forks that won't, including my favorite LMDE, Linux Mint
Yeah.
Debian Edition, which is very conservative. I do have a laptop that has a decent NPU. And so this stuff could run, but I'm not going to run it as a Copilot PC, even though I could. And I'm not going to run it with any Linux that develops into agentic AI. But if it's got some AI in there that assists, who cares?
It's a strange world we live in, and it's getting weirder and weirder every day. All right. Is there any other discussion on these two videos? Like I said, they'll be in your handout.
Well, I'll do a little tiny bit of input. As far as Windows updates go, I'm pretty knowledgeable about I keep up what's going on with patches and fixes and problems. So I pause my updates for usually at least 3 months before I allow it to catch up. And that seems to work out pretty well for me.
Yeah, maybe, but I would think that it would be smarter doing the 30-day challenge, like I said. If you were back on the Patch Tuesday of July here, which was the 14th, I would have had that on pause for up to 30 days. But on the 29th day, presumably the Monday before the next Patch Tuesday, I would say resume update, get all the updates in. Most of the bugs and problems would probably be ironed out, not 100%, but a good portion of the worst ones would be already taken care of. Then put it back on pause for 30 days. And then again, the Monday before Patch Tuesday, do a total update. It's better that way because AI is being used by the bad guys more and more. They're able to find this stuff faster, get executable code for doing the vulnerability and cracking in the systems. Individuals, for the most part, I would say probably 97% of the population has little to worry about. It's the 3%. Those are the most wealthy people, the most public people that might be vulnerable to ransomware, extortion, sextortion, and other types of scams to get their money one way or the other. Bert.
Well, I suppose I have a little different approach to everything. I update every day. I don't have problems. I update the previews for the next operating system and doing my updates. And I've been doing that for years and haven't had a problem.
Some people are lucky. Their systems are not the ones most vulnerable. Most of the vulnerability seems to be oddball models in some manufacturers' computers that run afoul. That's why, like in those limited Dell versions of computers, Dell's got to create a patch so that the problem gets resolved so the update can take place. But the other,
Well, sometimes, patches like from Dell or whatever may break the normal thing they're supposed to do for the operating system. And then the next time there's an update, it gets, doesn't work for
That's right.
those machines.
That happens too. But there's a lot of people that are having a problem, usually because they're not updating on a regular basis and keeping the stuff up to date. The end result is you get a out of sync situation with new patches going in that are expecting certain things to exist in the installed operating system. And because it's out of date, they may clash, causing real problems.
Also, I run mostly regular vanilla Microsoft applications and programs and through the Microsoft Store. And so I'm not putting myself in a position often where it's from third parties.
Usually if there's a problem with an installed application, it's third-party applications, usually in the security area, not the regular applications that cause most of the problems in that scenario.
Well,
Now,
I bring up, what I did so people have that understanding as well.
Bert, I
Update every
respect
day.
Bert, I respect what you do, and I do that with drivers, and I do that with Uniget UI for all of my software, third-party software. But I find that often pure Microsoft, plain vanilla Microsoft Store, just doesn't always meet my needs or doesn't meet my expectations. I I'll grant you I'm a little bit eccentric in what I like with my workflow and what I like with the ergonomics of a desktop, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I'll go with third parties and I'll make tweaks and all kinds of things like that, which can cause issues. And I am prepared to deal with the consequences if I have to. After all, I also do Linux, where I'm always dealing with consequences of software clashing and OS updates clashing and clashes with secure boot, which I'm dealing with now, and that's a different topic.
Well, one of my articles for next week that addresses a little bit of that secure boot problem. and it's been known for years. All right, I'm going to go on to the next article. This is a cute one, so you might want to listen to this one.
You've heard a common normie line, "Hey, I've got nothing to hide, so do what you want." This misguided philosophy has now allowed the creation of really privacy invading changes that result in permanent tracking on the internet. Lately, there has been a rampant elimination of privacy with the push for age verification, but the effects of this goes so much further. These recent changes by the government basically requires private companies to check your ID before you use the internet. I can already hear the response. "You're lying, Rob. No one is asking for my ID on the internet." Well, in some cases, they really are asking for ID, but in most cases, they're not, and you actually think there is no ID. But this just shows the innocence of the normal person, because the average person doesn't understand technology and doesn't realize that you can be tracked and your identity attached to everything you do on the internet, even without overt ID presentation. And when the government starts to require it, I'm telling you folks, abuse will follow. There will be bad consequences. Just recently, Congress introduced a new bill, H.R. 8250, which is called the Parents Decide Act, another frankly misguided bill that shows a complete misunderstanding of technology. This is another version of the California law requiring operating systems to store age verification. The result of this? No change for your kids, but a permanent verifiable device identity available for private parties to track all of us. These kinds of laws basically rubber stamp the tracking done by big tech as a requirement for daily use. So big tech loves this. But these features permanently diminish our privacy, and it's about time you became aware. So stay right there. Everything starts with the Fourth Amendment. For U.S. citizens, we are taught about the various elements of our Constitution, and one of them is the Fourth Amendment. Just to remind you, the Fourth Amendment is the right of people to be secure from unreasonable searches and seizures without probable cause. This, by the way, is constantly abused now with the once again regular renewal of the FISA 702 provision in the law, which allows for warrantless surveillance and abuse to apply to U.S. citizens. I made a call to action video about this to tell your representatives not to approve this, and I failed. It passed once again. But to frame this for you, the historical reason for the Fourth Amendment is to prevent the abuse of power. The warrant is required for normal searches and seizures, so no single government authority can just willy-nilly take your stuff without some justification of a potential crime being committed. The problem is that in today's world, the commodity that has bypassed the Fourth Amendment is your information. You see, when your information is taken by private parties, it is no longer the government taking them. So big tech freely collects your location information 24/7 and tracks your every click on the internet, and then associates this with some identifier which can then point directly back to you. The effect of this is chilling. If any action you do on the internet is attributed to you, then free speech can result in jail time, as is already proven to happen in the UK today. Free speech isn't really free. This is the unfortunate effect of modern technology. Free speech isn't really an act of freedom, because someone can attribute a normal person's statements to a permanent historical record, then most people will just prefer to remain quiet and not give a public opinion, thus giving credence to the mantra, "I've got nothing to hide." In reality, you purposely already hid what you want to say, so publicly you have nothing to hide, but you did hide something. You might think this is not a problem if you happen to support what some particular government leader is doing right now. But as history shows, this is abused by all politicians. So what's agreeable to you today may not be agreeable in the next political administration. Information about your actions can be used against you in employment, in banking, even public social media shaming or cancellation. And the consequences in non-free countries is even more extreme, like jail time or worse. We can speak without fear if we have pseudo-anonymity. Besides, what I think is private information. You don't have to know what I'm thinking. But it is important for the public to hear all opinions, as that gives people the choice to believe or not to believe, and their reactions will be balanced. When the opinions are suppressed, the result is really nothing short of a psyop. My manipulation of the masses, as you never really see the full story, a very common technique used by repressive governments. Where is this ID check?
Okay, I'm pause it there because it gets a little lengthy. It's almost 20 minutes long. Anybody got any comments on what he's leading up to? Nobody's got a comment. Gee. All right. This is also going to be in the handout, so you can look at the rest of whatever he has to say.
This week's surveillance report covers a brutal stretch of Microsoft vulnerabilities, so all of you Linux users who've tuned in the last couple weeks can rejoice because it's Microsoft's turn. There's a supply chain attack wave on open source software. Signal has threatened to leave Canada over some encryption stuff. Meta has this new AI-powered technology that targets underage users. There's definitely some eyebrow raisers for you Bitwarden users listening to this podcast, plus our usual data breaches, threats, and FOSS updates. Welcome everybody to the TechLore Surveillance Report, your essential weekly tech news delivering deep analysis on the latest threats to security, privacy, and digital freedom, and empowering you to reclaim control and defend your rights. Now, before I get into the 7 Microsoft stories this week, I know, crazy, just a quick little announcement. I've done a little bit of fresh branding for a surveillance report, so you might see some different stuff. I think it looks fresh. Let me know what you guys think. All right, now this has been a crazy week for Microsoft, so I just want to kind of set the scene here, which is the last couple weeks have been quite difficult on the Linux world because we've had all of these exploits in the Linux side of things. There's a Microsoft Exchange server spoofing vulnerability. So this occurs when an improper neutralization of input during web page generation or a cross-site scripting attack enables an attacker to perform spoofing over the network. All it takes to exploit this is to send a maliciously crafted email, which when opened in Outlook Web Access can execute arbitrary JavaScript in the context of the browser. Now, when this was announced, it was actually a 0-day that hadn't been patched yet and didn't make it into Patch Tuesday. At the time of recording, Microsoft has put forward an emergency mitigation process that they recommend for this critical vulnerability. Now, if that was it for Microsoft, this wouldn't be the highlight story. So we have a lot more, and these all tied together because last week we talked about how there is a disgruntled security researcher, hacker, 0-day finder. I don't know what their formal classification is, but this is chaotic eclipse or nightmare eclipse, again, depending on the time of day. They delivered on their promise when we talked about this last week, because last week they put forward some 0 days and they were quite disgruntled about how Microsoft was handling their bug report process, and they felt like they were wronged by Microsoft, and so they said, we're going to keep finding 0 days and publishing them. So this is called Mini Plasma, and it lets attackers gain system privileges on fully patched Windows systems. I don't know if they can fully claim that they were the discoverer / original author of this, because it's the same exact issue that was reported to Microsoft by Google Project Zero in 2020, which is still present unpatched. In fact, the original proof of concept by Google worked without any changes, they said. So I think they might have made some changes beyond that original proof of concept, but the reality is the original proof of concept also still worked from Google. So Google actually reported this to Microsoft originally, and Microsoft just chose to ignore it for 6 years.
Now, if you are curious on prevention tips, as always, all of these sources are in the description, and as you can see on screen, or if you're an audio listener, you can click into the show notes. There are ways that you can check to see and detect if you've been exploited by this. But really, all of this is a Trojan horse for the story behind this individual, right? Like, even Bleeping Computer, I think the lead leads into what's actually going on here, which is this person, they had Blue Hammer, they had Red Sun, they had Undefend, they had Yellow Key and Green Plasma, which we covered last week, which was the BitLocker bypass that we talked about. And now we have Chaotic Eclipse, putting out this brand new one. And they said, quote, normally I would go through the process of begging them to fix a bug, but to summarize, I was told personally by them that they will ruin my life, and they did. They mopped the floor with me and pulled every childish game they could. It was so bad at some point, I was wondering if I was dealing with a massive corporation or someone who was just having fun seeing me suffer, but it seems to be a collective decision. So, yeah, I guess this is very interesting. Personally, on my end, I would love to see kind of like what these communications looked like and why and how they felt they were wrong. Like, I would be curious to look at it. But yeah, this person's upset. But that's not even it, because this last week there was a very major event that happens, I believe annually, which is called Pwn to Own, which happens in Berlin. Pretty much a ton of researchers and hackers get together and they just try to break things. And as you could expect, there were a lot of exploits for just common pieces of software. We have Apple Safari was in here, Red Hat Enterprise Linux for Workstation, LM Studio, OpenAI Codex, Anthropic Claude Code, Mozilla Firefox even. But, of course, on that list was Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Exchange, Windows 11. But yeah, that's just one more thing this week that put kind of Microsoft on the map for these vulnerabilities and potentially some issues and how they're dealing with them. But that's not all, because yesterday there was a report put out. It is a sponsored piece from Bleeping Computer. It's from this company called Beyond Trust. They did this little report. They pretty much found that Microsoft's vulnerabilities actually fell last year. The previous year, which I believe is 2024, would have been 1,360 vulnerabilities, but last year it was 1,273 vulnerabilities. So it actually went down. But the nuance to this is actually the critical vulnerabilities went up. In 2024, it was 78, and last year was 157, which is double. But that's not all, because there's another kind of questionable situation that's hard to make sense of, and it's hard to know who's telling the truth or what's going on. But there was a Microsoft Azure vulnerability that came out, and a security researcher claims they quietly fixed this, but they said they never cared or they didn't want to fix it. So pretty much, this is a bit confusing, but there was this vulnerability with Microsoft Azure. This person came forward and they reported the vulnerability. Microsoft said, this isn't a vulnerability. We're not going to make any changes to this. But the researcher came forward and said, hey, now this requires trusted access to be manually configured, and this actually fixes the original problem that I put forward. So the vulnerability appears to have been fixed, but Microsoft didn't issue a public advisory, nor did they notify their customers about it. This one seems a little bit more of a structural problem. In fact, Bleeping Computer at the end talks about how because this didn't get a CVE or an advisory, there's very little visibility into the exposure window, and so it's really difficult to actually make sense of these things and going back and forth with them. People are complaining and saying that maybe this has to do with AI spamming these like bug and security research programs, and so it's making it harder for companies to keep up with this. It's really hard to know what's going on, but there does seem to be this overwhelming pattern of companies maybe having shorter fuses for security researchers, which is a problem. Now, before I get into the takeaways, I did want to say it wasn't all bad news for Microsoft. This is actually an update from a story we covered a few weeks ago on the podcast, because we covered how Microsoft Edge is the only Chromium-based browser that loaded your passwords into your RAM in plain text, so any other piece of software could have accessed it. In fact, I even called this directly kind of a lack of care for defense in depth and thinking about security outside of just what you're maybe responsible for at the bare minimum. Well, it's kind of cool because Microsoft actually patched this. I mean, it should have never been an issue in the first place, but they did patch it, and they said, quote, this defense in depth change will come to every supported version of Edge, including stable, beta, dev, canary. With the extended stable channel, our enterprise customers run, and we're prioritizing the rollout. So they are getting that issue fixed, which is good because, again, I think it was just sloppy and lazy, and I'm glad they changed their mind on it, and yeah, they backpedaled, but in a good way. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? We've been covering these Linux vulnerabilities, and just to start off, I think the issue with the Linux vulnerabilities in general is that there's so much just messiness, because you have all these different Linux distributions. You have the Linux kernel itself, which has tons of different people who are managing it. It's not like one person controls the Linux kernel. And so you have these natural downstream effects when we get these exploits, and you have these families of exploits that are all quite similar in nature, but they work slightly differently. And then you have to try to track which distro does what. And I'm really sorry for you all, because, you know, I got some comments. Some people were like, Arch hasn't had any public communication about this. They haven't fixed any of these issues. But then when I checked their site and I looked for the CV reports on Arch's website, they actually had one or two of them fixed, but maybe not the third one. And so this puts so much burden on all of you who are just trying to use Linux individually to have to know if you're on patched or unpatched software, which I don't think it should be your responsibility to do that. And so that is kind of the Linux side of things, but I think that is for most people, a fair trade-off maybe for getting that open ecosystem. Like you're running open software run by people, run by a community, and you don't have to deal with a company that doesn't care about you. Now, Microsoft is quite unique here because you're actually still getting a lot of that experience, but through a centralized company that should know what the hell they're doing, right? Like Microsoft is coming forward, they're backpedaling on what they're considering a security issue and what's not a security issue. They're pissing off researchers. They are getting caught with all these vulnerabilities left and right. It seems unclear, and it doesn't seem like they internally have a clear process on what they're deciding to prioritize and fix first over something else. It just seems like a mess back there. Honestly, you're getting kind of the worst of all worlds right now with Microsoft, because I don't think they're really handling these situations in a way that really showcases leadership, that showcases care for users, care for the user experience. Not that we'd expect anything different given Microsoft's history these last few years. I mean, everything they do seems to be anti-user. So this is tough, man. It's really tough to back this up. It's really tough to not look at these situations and make me go, I don't know why someone would put faith in Microsoft right now for this kind of...
Okay, I'm going to stop that there. There's quite a bit more to it than what you've already seen and heard. Now, I want to preface this. This article was originally published about 2 months ago. So it's a little bit old, but it also starts clarifying how we got the big 570 patches for July of this year. So take what he's saying here through all the vulnerabilities with a grain of salt and see why suddenly you had such a mushroom of patches that are coming up this month. What next month is going to be, we don't know. It could be a nice small month with very little updates. It could also be something that eclipsed the 570 we had this month. So it's a case where you're at depends upon the priorities that all the companies that are creating software, whether it's the operating system or an application program, they're scrambling right now, and much of this is caused by AI. AI, back in March, I think it was, they published a article to all the major companies. AI Mythos went through all the operating systems and a lot of other application software, found vulnerabilities, and the people who were responsible for those individual products were notified about them. And suddenly you have to stop whatever you're doing, try and figure out how to get a handle on it and how quickly you can address some of these issues, because the fear is hallucinations in that list of vulnerabilities, and that can be a real thing. You don't want to be chasing down something that turns out to be a hallucination from the AI. They want the real bugs published and figured out a patch for them and get it out to the public and businesses. Anybody got any comments so far on this? Nobody. Gee, having an unusual night. 2 in a row. No comment. All right, next up.
Google has announced that their grand project to transform search from a search engine into something more like a clown car stuffed with bots is proceeding apace. I'll assign one of the bots to pour one out for the open web. I'm Riley Murdoch, this is TechLinked, and this is the new search box announced at Google I/O yesterday, which will let you summon a swarm of AI agents to scour the web on your behalf just by asking a question. They're gonna leave little trails of residue everywhere. Everyone's gonna love it. They can continuously scan for new info you're interested in and update you later, so you never have to sully your eyes by looking at a website ever again. That's for the common folk. You won't even have to sully your fingertips by touching a computer when Google's new smart glasses launch this fall. There will be the previously announced Project Aura glasses with a display and newly unveiled Warby Parker and Gentle Monster designed frames without a display. You'll be able to get directions, covertly snap photos of people hands-free without them knowing, and ask Gemini what you're seeing so you will finally know what you're seeing. I've been helpless up until this point. Like, for instance, I know you're there, but I can't see you. If you see a deal, you can drop it into Google's new Universal Cart, which can collect products from multiple websites as you visit them and let you check out all of it at once. But would you even want that if it didn't also have Gemini built in to track deals, flag price drops, and warn you when the GPU and the motherboard in your cart are incompatible? I don't know, that actually sounds pretty cool, but this is already a lot. Well, good thing there's even more. Google also announced a bunch of new AI models. Gemini 3.5 Flash is now powering AI mode in search, and according to Google, it's both faster and cheaper than its competitors. Then there's Omni, Google's new AI video generator. Oh, sorry, it's actually an anything generator because it can create anything from any input. Starting with video, though. They do have some impressive examples of Omni adding things to pre-existing videos, so it's great that Omni is now being baked straight into YouTube Shorts, which I guess is YouTube's interpretation of the commitment they made back in January to fight low-effort AI slop. Omni isn't low effort. It's artisanal, Google-branded slop, so it's the good kind. They also announced Gemini Spark, Google's version of the notoriously insecure AI personal assistant, OpenClaw. Like similarly recently announced agentic systems from OpenAI and Anthropic, Spark will read your emails, write in your voice, shop with your money, and best of all, run in the background 24/7, constantly pretending to be you when communicating with your friends and loved ones. A jury has dismissed Elon Musk's 2024 lawsuit against OpenAI, which argued the nonprofit betrayed its original mission by transitioning to a for-profit structure. Jurors found that Musk waited too long to file the suit, and his claims were barred by the statute of limitations. However, there was certainly no limit on the amount of dirty laundry Musk could air. Testimony and documents highlighted messy departures, intense infighting, and shocking accusations from former board members that the guy the internet nicknamed Scam Altman may have been a bit dishonest. He wants to scan your eyeballs, for good reason though. The trial even delved into the diary of OpenAI co-founder and president Greg Brockman, in which he questioned if it was morally bankrupt to transform a nonprofit whose stated mission was ensuring AI benefits all humanity into a for-profit business. Ooh, that's a toughie. Though Musk's suit has been tossed, the trial's flood of testimony could do lasting reputational damage to OpenAI as it eyes a big IPO. Meanwhile, Musk says he's going to appeal the court's decision, so this embarrassing billionaire battle will continue potentially indefinitely. Or at least until I tell you about our sponsor. Wolfbox! In the early days of the world, before the oceans and the tides, before the mountains and the sky, there was only dust. And so the world was, for eons, until...
Okay. I've had enough of that one. But anyway, this is primarily focused towards Google's change from the regular search engine we've had for decades into you're really applying a search to an AI that tries to give you all the benefits of AI, which you may or may not be looking for, especially when it does things 24/7 and you don't maybe know a lot of what it's doing on your behalf. So does this raise any questions with any of you?
Funny thing, Tim, I haven't seen any of this. Then again, I have meticulously removed all this garbage from Google Chrome Beta, my operating systems, and Google Search. And you can do it too.
Oh, I've been removing Chrome from a lot of my systems. I stopped using that. I use other browsers instead.
No, I'm not removing Chrome. I'm removing the AI garbage from Chrome.
Well,
there's a difference.
I didn't want to get down to the level of nitpicking, trying to pull out this and pull out that from everything that's in the systems. So I just said I had enough of Google's Chrome. I took it out altogether.
Well, to me, there's kind of a challenge in picking the needles out of the haystack.
And I think Edge is going the same direction as far as that goes. But I also have heard recently that the user base of Copilot is about 3%. And that includes the Microsoft employees themselves. Maybe using only 3%.
I would get rid of Chrome also if I could, but I do voice recognition, and my software requires Chrome proper.
Yeah, but at least you know from Bob that you might be able to get rid of some of that, but not necessarily all of it.
It depends on what that third-party software needs,
Right.
which APIs it needs.
Right.
If it doesn't need any of the APIs that have been, and you know what, ified, then you don't have a problem. But if it does require some of the and you know what-ified APIs, then you might have a little problem.
Well, there's some kind of voice recognition API in Chrome that's not in Brave, it's not in Edge. And I have two programs that I pay for that do voice recognition from two entirely different companies, and they both require Chrome.
By any chance, does Chromium have the support?
No. It's an API only in Google Chrome.
Okay.
And we can only hope that they don't try to put agentic AI into that.
Good luck on that idea. I don't think you got a prayer. All right. If there's nothing else, I'll go on to the next one.
But you guys got another video. Microsoft may drop the forced Microsoft account during setup phase of Windows 11. Microsoft is initially discussing dropping the mandatory Microsoft account MSA requirement during the Windows 11 setup process, while it remains a strict requirement from Microsoft for the new setups today. Senior executives are advocating for offline, i.e. local accounts option. Now, a Windows Vice President has publicly acknowledged the user frustration with forced Microsoft accounts, and internal teams are actively evaluating a return of the MSA free setup experience, which will allow people to sign into a local account during the out-of-box experience when setting up Windows 11, like we're going to be doing right here. In my opinion, this will be a massive gain of trust of their user base if they reverse this back to allowing people to get local accounts. This is what we're going to be discussing in this video after a quick word from today's video sponsor, CD Key Sales. If you're looking for cheap Windows keys or Office keys, then you can check 30% discount on all your purchases on CD. It will then send you your key version of Windows 11, removing that watermark and allowing you to make changes. So we all know that the forced Microsoft accounts have not gone down too well with its user base. Now, a lot of users have found workarounds for this particular annoyance, and of course Microsoft have done their best to basically block these workarounds. There is still a few that actually work, and I will show you one of them in this video that still works if you want to choose to use it to be able to install Windows 11 with a local account. But hopefully this will be a thing of the past if Microsoft make changes to their requirements and allow people to choose a local account during the out-of-box experience, which is just after installing Windows 11, you'll come to the out-of-box experience. Let me show you what that looks like. So this information comes from Scott Hauserman on his Twitter account or X account. He is a VP at Microsoft. Someone asked a question, are they going to be removing the requirements for Microsoft accounts? And he says, yeah, I hate that, working on it. So hopefully he can work some magic there at Microsoft and get this requirements reversed. So this is the out-of-box experience. What Microsoft want you to do is go through all of this to see all of their options they have available in the out-of-box experience. A lot of people want to just skip the forced Microsoft account and go straight into a local account. But Microsoft have really made it difficult. They've been really aggressive on closing off all of the workarounds that people have found. And there's still a few that are available. And Microsoft have seemed to have paused all of the blocking of these workarounds lately and just left these last few that you can use. Now, some of them are going to be difficult to stop if you've got Windows 11 Pro using the domain setup, which will give you a local account. But with home users, they are literally forced. If they turn off the internet, it will literally know that you've disabled the internet and it will tell you that you need to reconnect. I'll show you that right now. In the old days, you used to be able to pull out the Ethernet cable, but you'll get, oops, you've lost internet connection, and it won't let you carry on with the installation until you plug in the Ethernet cable again. So let me go ahead and do that, and we'll click retry, and you can see it now says that we are connected. Now, there is a way to get up, I do not have an internet, and this means that they don't want you to install Windows 11 offline. They want you to be online when you're installing it, and this is not what everyone wants. So when you get to this stage, you can skip for now, and you'll get this window popping up right here, which is signing into a Microsoft account. Now, this is a Windows 11 home, and you can see there is no way to bypass this right here, right now, unless you push Shift F10 to open up a command prompt window. But Microsoft want you to sign in so you get all of this right here where it says accelerate your device setup, how to keep your PC secure, control privacy and subscription preferences across all your devices, access Microsoft 365 and things like that. So this is why Microsoft are pushing for Microsoft accounts, and you can see it will be OneDrive, which is automatically turned on, and you will also get the access to other features like Teams. So you can see right here we have now a Microsoft box right here, and this is what people want Microsoft to change, where you're forced to sign in to a Microsoft account. Now you can literally once you've signed in, get to the desktop and then sign into a local account, which is what Microsoft are suggesting. But some people don't want to even do that. So you can push Shift F10 and it does open up this command prompt window. As always, the information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Any actions you take based on this video are strictly done at your own risk and decision. I'm not responsible for any loss of your data. Make sure you back up your data before you continue. So if you've chosen to bypass the false Microsoft account at this stage, you have to disconnect the internet right now, and then you need to type in this start space ms dash cxh colon local only. Once you type that out and press enter, it will open up another window. You do need to be disconnected from the internet, and you'll see something looking like this. Once you put in your username right here and your password if you want to use one, and then click next, this will basically force Windows 11 to sign into a local account. This works still on Windows 11. This is one of the working methods that still work. And there you go, I've put in a username and pressed next, and it's now setting up the PC and skipping the Microsoft account. Now, hopefully, if Microsoft reverse their strict policies where you have to use a Microsoft account, you won't have to do any of this stuff. And you'll be able to just go through and switch on the local account and then go through and set up the out-of-box experience like you see right here. There's no need to sign into a Microsoft account. Microsoft don't need to enforce this. They could let you sign into a local account during the out-of-box experience and still see all of the stuff they want you to see. So basically, once you've done that, you can now connect back to the internet and you can see you've signed in with a local account. Hopefully, Microsoft are going to give us the option for local accounts rather than this false Microsoft account. And I do believe if they do this, they will be able to win over a lot of people with this strict policy change. Let me know your thoughts.
Okay. Any comments on this one? I'm not holding my breath until reverse that, but can always hope.
Yeah, and when I set up my new laptop, there was a somewhat different way of doing it. I have Pro, and it led to the same effect.
Yeah, I have.
So
I
yeah, it does work.
I use Rufus. That gets around it too.
Yeah, there's a Rufus setup. When Microsoft allows you to download their ISO into Rufus, sometimes they don't.
Well, I already have copies of the ISO, so I ain't worried about it. And I just feed in one of those to the Rufus. I get out a thumb drive that gives me the ability to create a local account. I give it the name, and then I just have to answer the security questions, etc.
Yep. Now, once you get into the account, one of the first things they have is this great big red checked banner, red X banner that says, "You haven't backed up your PC." If you click on that, all your files get transferred up to Microsoft OneDrive, and you never gained control of them again.
Yeah, and that's also in part where sometimes things just disappear and you can't get them back. There have been plenty of cases where that's been done, and it's mostly a case where the people are not familiar with this stuff going up to OneDrive, and in their system, they have the file name with a little image of a cloud that says, this is up on OneDrive, is what it is implying. But if you want to, you can download that individual file to your system. And if you want to later on, if you make changes, you can put it back up in the cloud, or the system itself in time will put a copy back up to the OneDrive. All right, since there isn't much discussion on that, this is an article. Windows Firewall has a blind spot for these tweaks. You need to close it. Windows 11 Firewall is watching the front door while apps sneak out the back door. Now, if you've been around CCS for a long time, back in the early 2000s, Al Cheeks suddenly was sending out messages he didn't know about at first until somebody called him up and says, "What the heck is this all about?" And that's when you found out that Windows Firewall only protects incoming. It does not prevent any outgoing stuff. So if you get some malware that takes your contact list and makes fake messages in your name on your account and sends it out to all the people in your contact list, big surprises can happen. And basically, most of the people did not fall for it and were able to avoid escalation of this scam that was going on. But that's an old trick that most people are able to avoid. But every now and then it pops up again. So that's another problem. I use Malwarebytes free enhancement to the Windows firewall that blocks outgoing. The only problem is because of all the security issues, all the online accounts keep changing some little pieces here and there. I don't know if it's in the APIs or what it is, but bottom line is almost monthly, I have to go through a lot of the firewall to upgrade what is now allowed that is being blocked, or I can't get even Windows updates to work. Or I use a third-party antivirus program, it can't get its updates. But once I train the program firewall, it then allows certain things to go through at my discretion. I do not willy-nilly say okay to all the things that pop up in there, because some of that has to do with telemetry or Windows OneDrive access and other things like that. So my firewall, now enhanced, stops a lot of outbound stuff even to Microsoft. It's not necessarily bulletproof by any stretch of the imagination, but anything that cuts down the leaks in your system of information going out without your knowledge and consent, at least I get some satisfaction. It's just a headache having to do all the maintenance to the firewall. And most people would not really be happy with that kind of firewall solution because of the constant changes that a lot of companies are making to try and keep things more secure and less vulnerable to attack. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a couple. One is, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but when you're running Windows Defender, you get a lot of protection for the Edge browser, and there is a limited subset of protection that you get when you're running Chrome and Firefox. And I did some research into this, and it turns out that Microsoft has an extension in the Chrome Web Store and the Firefox Store that enhances your protection in the browser. So that Windows Defender will talk to its extension in Chrome and Firefox and give you the protection back that you only normally have in Edge. Secondly, I was using a third-party antivirus from Avast, and it has its own firewall, and it replaces the Windows firewall, and you can set it at different levels. You can say, just, don't bother me, or bother me a little bit, or, don't let anything get out unless I give it approval. and it was a pain in the ass. And I just bought a couple of weeks ago the upgrade to have Malwarebytes standard, which is a paid version. And I got rid of the Avast firewall. And Malwarebytes uses and leverages the Windows firewall, although it has its own management interface for the firewall. So what I discovered is that the first time I ran a program, it would pop up a box asking me if I wanted to allow this particular program to get out on the internet. And you just click the OK box, and it automatically modifies the Windows firewall to allow it or block it from getting on the internet. So those are my comments.
Okay. One of the things that is part of the internet, especially with Edge, is WebView 2. And a lot of browsers that have nothing to do with Microsoft, they're all third party, they won't run unless they can get, shall we say, permissions to be able to handle the WebView 2. And so sometimes I have to activate that to make a web browser even work. So
yeah, my computer got a lot faster when I switched to Malwarebytes off of Avast.
Okay.
And then for those who are interested, there is a third-party firewall called SimpleWall. And when you run SimpleWall, it doesn't install into Windows. It just runs as a portable app. And when you turn it on, by default, it blocks 100% of the inbound and outbound traffic. And then you have to let applications in one at a time. So it doesn't it turns off 100% of your connection to the internet for everything. If you're in a position where you want to, if you're having a virus potential problem, or if you're suspicious about something, you can load the SimpleWall, and it will immediately lock you down and let you find out which ones are trying to poke through it.
Okay. Anybody got anything else to add to this topic? Hearing none, I'll move on, probably to our last one.
Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time I'm going to share my thoughts on potentially dramatic changes in home computing. These are being driven by 3 developments that are happening right now, and which, in combination, recently got me thinking about where computation in the home may well be headed. And so, I thought I'd make this video. Developments in home computing have often been driven by increasing component integration, or, in other words, incorporating more and more parts into a single package. The first electronic computers were based on these vacuum tubes, and we then moved on to computers built from individual transistors. But in the 1960s, that changed because we had the development of the integrated circuit, which had multiple transistors on a single device on a silicon chip. And then, in the 1970s, we had what was then called very large-scale integration, loads and loads of transistors being put onto one chip, and that allowed the development of the microprocessor, and in turn, microcomputers. And it was development of microprocessors and microcomputers that first really started home computing. However, increasing component integration is about far more than making increasingly powerful central processing units. For example, if we look across to this early 1990s PC, we see that it contains lots of expansion cards, with almost no connectivity integrated into the motherboard. And so, early desktop PCs not only had separate graphics cards, but also network cards, sound cards, and cards for serial and parallel ports. In stark contrast, if we look inside a modern tower PC, here an AMD 5600G system, no expansion cards are included. This system also relies on a GPU integrated into the CPU, and so here no separate graphics card is required, and the inside of this tower PC is rather empty. Looking to the future, already the next phase of component integration is occurring. Not least, in November 2020, Apple launched its M1 processor. This has since been followed by the M2, M3, M4 and M5, all of which are technically a SIP, or a system in a package, which integrate a CPU, GPU and RAM into a single component. To be clear what's going on here, in Apple M chips, the RAM is not included on the processor die. But the processor die and RAM chips are all packaged into a single SIP module. Having the RAM integrated with the CPU and GPU provides performance improvements, and I personally think that in time it will become very common. In fact, in 2024, Intel did release some Core Ultra laptop processors with integrated memory. Admittedly, it then rejected the idea of doing so again, citing the impact on its margins of having to purchase the RAM as a relatively small buyer in the memory market. But, given that Intel also made clear that on-package memory improved performance and reduced power consumption, I still think that RAM integrated into a SIP will be the future for most home desktop and laptop computers. It's just that the x86 platform needs time to adjust. Integrating the CPU, GPU, RAM and other components clearly removes the opportunity to make individual component upgrades, and in turn will impact PC form factors. Indeed, if we go back to the Apple website and click on Mac, notable by its absence is the Mac Pro. Just to remind us, if we go back in time and take a look, the Mac Pro looked like this and was a very expensive tower desktop PC. But in March 2026, the Mac Pro was discontinued. So, having transitioned to SIPs, Apple no longer sells a computer with a tower form factor. And the end of the Mac Pro is one of the events that recently got me thinking about the future of home computing. For if Apple believe, as they clearly do, that even developers, professional video editors and other power users no longer need a tower PC, then something has changed.
Okay, that's as far as I'm gonna go because of time. We're just past 9 o'clock, though we got a late start. So anybody got any comments on what was covered so far in our hardware development? I don't have time to get to this one here. Passkeys explained. A lot of people are not up to date as to what passkeys are, what they do, what they don't do. All right, I'm gonna see if I can find my document, open up chat and put the handout in chat. Come on. All right, now about that. Okay, it should be out there in chat. Bert, did you get yours? How about you, Bob?
Just a moment while I try. Yeah, got it.
Drew?
Yep, I'm all set.
Donna? Donna?
No, I can't get it with the iPad. Sorry.
All right, I'll email you. I got
Thank you, Tim.
Len Johnson to do too. All right. Anybody got anything else for tonight's meeting?
Oh, I put into the chat. I didn't mention it, but if you happen to have the Brave browser, some of you know that Google went from Manifest 2 to Manifest 3 for their extensions, and they knocked a lot of the ad blockers out, including uBlock Origin.
Right. That's
The
true.
Brave has made coding changes in the Brave browser, and in the chat, I put in the hyperlink that you go to. It's not out on the web, it's local on your browser. And it
Okay.
gives you the option to install version 2 of the uBlock Origin from the Brave website.
Interesting. Okay.
So you can get the real full-blown uBlock Origin in a Chrome browser.
All right. Next week, the 28th is the Linux SIG meeting, and you got one preview of what might be there in today's meeting announcement by accident. But at any rate, hopefully many of you will show up for the Linux meeting and get a lot of information there. There's been changes like crazy. I don't care whether you got Microsoft, Apple, and or Linux, BSD operating systems, etc. Since about late April on, the number of patches and security updates alone, you got to almost update daily to every other day. I'm having to go through my various versions of Linux and update them no later than every other day. Okay. If there's,